Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Risk Matrix. You're in the Matrix, baby, with our hosts, myself, Dr. Martin, and James Junkin.
Roll Tide, fresh back from the National Safety Council, Orlando, Florida, in the midst of college football season. We're in the house. We got Jocko in the house. No, not that Jocko, but a cool Jocko. Welcome, Jocko.
Thank you so
Welcome,
much. I
Jocko.
appreciate both of you. Thank you.
So we brought Jocko on today because Jocko does some work in some PSM facilities. He does some turnaround work, refinery work in the upstream oil and gas industry.
Downstream.
Downstream, sorry. And we're going to talk about his experiences. We're going to talk about his journey. But before we do that, we're going to have James give us a little note from our sponsor.
So this episode of the Risk Matrix, powered by Veriforce, is brought to you by one of our newest instructor-led programs, Safe Driver. Driving fatalities lead all causes of death across all industries, but especially in the oil and gas industry. Oil and gas workers are 27 times more likely to perish in a vehicle accident than the general public. Vehicle accidents account for 27% of the total fatalities in the oil and gas industry. So Safe Driver by Veriforce is not just a course. It's a commitment to transforming driving behaviors and ensure that workers come home safe from the road. For more information and to enroll in this program, contact training sales at veriforce.com. I'm super excited about that program. Super excited.
Thanks, James. So let me tell our listeners a little bit about how I met Jocko. There's a lot to Jocko. He's not just a safety professional. He's not just a culinary guru. He's also a motivational speaker. And the way I met Jocko was when I had my own podcast called The Safety Struggle. I stumbled upon one of Jocko's social media posts, a motivational speech, and I was so moved by it. Saw he was in safety, and we hooked up that way, and we had a conversation on a former podcast. So, if it's okay with you, Jocko, I'd like you to tell a little bit about your journey here, because you didn't come right into safety from college or from school or any of that. You kind of took a circuitous route to get where you are.
Yeah, Linda, thank you so much once again, James. But yeah, I didn't really start in the industry. I started in a different industry. I actually went to culinary school. So I cooked 7 years professionally. Those 7 years, I went from dishwasher all the way to running the kitchen and being the head chef of a smaller restaurant. And all throughout my life in Texas, I did different stages and internships at country clubs. One of them being in the Houston Country Club, one of the most prestigious country clubs in the nation. And that kind of sent me on off path. I wanted to do a career change. And to sum it all up, one day I knocked on the door of this mom and pop plant, per se, in Highlands, Texas, and they gave me a shot. That months after turned into an opportunity in safety, and the rest is history.
And that's
how many years? How many years now you've been doing safety?
Going on to almost 13 now.
So what made you choose to leave the culinary arts? Because you can tell James likes to eat. I live in New Orleans, baby. We're going to eat. It's too hot to do anything else, right? What made you decide to get into industrial safety?
So the all popular, right? So I was surrounded by my brother who used to be in the industry, best friends, and a couple other friends. And I was just kind of like seeing my options, the skills that I had, what I had to offer, and work. What can I transition to that I have some applicable experience that when I knock on somebody's door, somebody will tell me, you know what, we can work with that. And the basic naive thing was always told to me, hey, you should do safety. All you do is just walk around, tell people to put on their glasses and tie off. That's really it. Now, me, I have a good head up on my shoulders. I like to believe that, and I like to stand by that. And I knew that was their perception, right? The way they would look at it. And the more I started looking into it, curious, Google searches, looking over the internet, the more I dug into it, the more it was a little bit unclear. And that unclearness, nobody could really define what it was. maybe make calls. What was OSHA 30? What is the CSST? And that path, that rabbit hole, kind of led me into it.
You know, that's pretty common, to believe it or not, is people, number one, don't really understand what we do. I tell people all the time. I told my class I was teaching today, hey man, I respect what you do. Most people think all you do is ride around and tell people to put their safety glasses and hard hat on. Man, I wish that's all I had to do is ride around and tell people to put hard hat and safety glasses on. That'd be an easy day, man. You know, that's not reality, is it?
No, I mean, there's more than meets the eye. When people ask me, and you get told this too, you get asked, what do you do for a living? Sometimes it's a little difficult to like explain, but I like to say one thing very clear. My job, in a nutshell, is to make sure that I keep alive and safe the people that are earning an honest paycheck, whether it be transmission and distribution lines, whether it be insulating something, putting pipe together, taking pipe apart. My job is to make sure I look after them.
I basically have had the same experience when you go places and people ask what you do, and the first thing people say to me when I say I do occupational safety, they say, "Oh, like OSHA." And that's not really the answer I like to get back, because I think that's a small part of the overall job is compliance with OSHA, right? If you're really good at what you do, you're doing compliance, but you're also doing best practices, and you're doing you're caretaking people, you're caretaking well-being. It's not just OSHA. So I find those awkward conversations too. What about you, James?
Well, you know, I've always struggled to describe what it is we do because we do so much in a variety of different industries, in a variety of different trade craft. But I really like Veriforce's mission statement. We bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs. That's what we do, man. We make your little girl's birthday party, you be present at that. That's what we do. And so that creates, you know, a mission statement, a passion to bring workers home, to get beyond just the rules and the regulations. You got to do this, you got to wear that. OSHA says, you know, odds are you may never see OSHA in your career unless you have a serious injury or fatality. You're not really going to run into OSHA based on the number of compliance officers versus the number of workers and businesses in the United States. So I don't find that using the OSHA hammer is very motivating to people, but I do find reminding them why they're at work. We're all at work to get paid, to get our money, to make a payday, to get home and take care of our families. And too often, too many workers are not making it home. Or if they're making it home, they're making it home with injuries. And you work in a very high risk industry. You know, downstream oil and gas, when we're talking about chemical plants, we're talking about refineries. You know, those are when we have mistakes in that, they're very public. They're very much on the news. They're the fires, they're the explosions, they're the chemical releases that affect not only the workers, but maybe the general public, you know, sheltering in place. Were you down in Houston during Hurricane Harvey?
I don't believe I evacuated, I believe.
You know, that was a terrible time for process safety. Plants exploded due to chemical reactions because we can maintain the temperatures. You know, you've probably been in plants doing turnarounds and outages where you've seen things that move beyond just personal safety. You know, where one worker's affected, it affects a lot of workers. So I'd like to talk about maybe some of your experiences that you've had in chemical processing plants and refineries, since a lot of your career has been in that.
See, one of the things that I don't think is fully understood and I like that we spoke about it, you know, right before starting our talk here, is the turnaround or the shutdown, as we call them down south, what it encompasses, right? So personal safety from the construction end, which I love the challenge of we don't have where to tie off yet. We don't have how to do the job. We have to find out how we're going to do it safely, compared to a live facility that's per se breathing, moving, and all that. People sometimes don't really grasp the amount of time that it takes to bring a unit down, the hazards we're bringing a unit down, and then that in the midst of maybe bringing a particular section of a unit down, you still have a running facility around it. So maybe you implement control work, maybe you implement just a one isolated area under a specific type of permitting. And in my experience, especially here with Shell, I really like the layout that we have whenever we do a control permitted area, whenever we're going to have a unit down, but still in the surroundings, we have to keep a part of the process live. Sometimes I think in safety, we become really focused on personal safety and the hazard here, but we forget to really branch out a little bit more and learn, hey, what does the power actuated valve play a role in the job that I'm trying to do here? Why do I choose blinding here versus a double block and bleed in a different scenario? So in my experience, I think we a little bit forget that it's just much more than just personal safety, an industrial setting or an occupational setting like the one I am right now.
So, I mean, I'm in awe of the things that you've done in what I would call a short career compared to James and I, going on 30 some odd years. How do you define success in a heavy industrial role like you're in, where there's so much going on? I mean, when you said you got stuff going on in one area and you're trying to keep processes going on in other areas, I've only seen a glimpse of this because I was at a turnaround with the crane company they worked with in New Jersey several years back, and they had something like 87 cranes on the facility doing things, and they were still operating. And so I'm curious about, how do you implement everything that you need to implement and keep eyes on everything that you have to keep eyes on in that situation? And what type of personality, what type of safety professional does it take to operate in that kind of environment? It's not natural. It's not easy.
I agree. It's a daily battle. The best way that I can describe it in my experience is that one, you have to be able, and both of you know what I'm talking about. You have to be able to do conflict management. Conflict doesn't have to be somebody losing their cool. Conflict could be, operation maintenance, they're not lining up on something. Contractor partners telling you, hey, we don't want to do it. But the operation and saying, we only have 2 weeks, or else we're going to trip the entire system. And we're going to be in a really bad bind, right? Then we're going to have to bring things down, ramping down. Type of personality that I can best describe to be manageable and successful, you have to be able to communicate well, efficiently. You have to be able to listen. Besides anything that can come out of your mouth, you have to be able to listen. Listen to the operator, listen to the maintenance tech, listen to the contract partner, and just really see what's the task at hand, what's going on. And you have to have a part of some support from your management team, right? Whoever it is that you're working alongside and for, have to make sure that there's an agreed set of terms and guidelines you're going to go by. That is of no use if you could be a well-communicated, well-established, knowledgeable safety, and at the end there's no baseline plan, there's no plan of attack per se, or manage that kind of situation. When also a thing is that if you're a safety professional and maybe you say, I'm not an operator, I don't know, I don't run this facility, there's nothing holding you back from learning daily, getting with an operator and knowing how their system works. What's dependent on what? If this process goes down, do we have a relief one and that we can swap? That's what we do a shutdown, or is it we have to do maintenance until there's a shutdown because we have to bring the whole process down? Understanding the process from an operator's perspective gives you not only an insight, but it gives you what I call field cred with those operators, because they respect that you're trying to understand their process and that you get their way of thinking when they go for a job.
And I guess that's one of the points I want to make and really get your insight on is safety professionals move around a lot. The days of a safety professional joining a company and staying with that same company for 20 years, that's really almost unheard of anymore. So whether or not, your experience is through formal education or through the working in the field, when you get a new safety professional, new to the plant, new to downstream operations, what's some advice that you can give them so that they can be successful?
Okay, if we take in somebody who's just joining the team, and just to be completely clear, I'm a firm believer of a degree, of certifications. Whatever it is that your situation, life happens. Not all of us can afford it. Not all of us
Right.
can be in a perfect scenario, podium to go out there and achieve it. And I like to say that whatever it is that you're going to show, make sure that that reflects what you're able to do. If I have a CHST, I'm knowledgeable and construction standards, best practices. I know my difference between a recommendation and a policy versus an expectation. Those can be at times three different things, right? And the best thing that I would do is say, whatever it is you're telling me or you're showing the world that you know, make sure that your certification, your degree matches it. There's nothing saying that you are a subject matter expert just because you come out with a CHST, but there's certain basic things that people are going to come to you for an answer. And I'm not to say you can't hesitate, but you really have to start getting in the groove of being able to dish out answers in a timely manner so they can feel supported. And then that gives you also credit. Another thing that I would really recommend is focus on how you communicate. Sometimes you would have to go back to basics. Hey, we're gonna do this job like this. We have to lock out these 2 points. We're gonna hang the lockout tag out, fill out the folder, the permit, whatever it is that your facility uses it. Are we clear on that? You have to sometimes get that verification from whoever you're having that one-on-one engagement. You can't assume they understand. You can't assume they know what to do. Not because you doubt their capabilities, but because sometimes us in a train of thought, we will assume that person should know, that person knows. And the worst thing that you can do is have somebody saying, well, when you said this, I understood X, Y, Z. And I will really focus on reflecting what you know is what you show on paper, communicate effectively, and at the end, listen way more than you dish out.
I think that's great advice. I've worked in some refineries and chemical plants, but the bulk of my career in the oil and gas industry has been midstream and upstream on the E&P side, right? And that's got its own specific hazards. I mean, we're dragging this dragon out of the ground that can blow up in your face. But when you're in a plant, it's like thousands of those. When you're in a drilling rig, we got one hole, we got to watch, we got to maintain, we got to ensure the integrity of that well. But when you're in a plant, there are tens of hundreds of different processes that are going on at all the time. And I find it really unique when you start talking about working into a plant. It's a different environment than in construction. It's a different environment than midstream and even upstream oil and gas, even though we're still dealing with a hydrocarbon product, right? And so you have to be especially vigilant when you're working in a plant because process safety is not very forgiving when we make mistakes. Lockout, tag out. If you can't understand lockout, tag out and how it works, I don't know how you work in a plant. I've always said, dude, I'd never be the lockout, tag out coordinator for a plant during a turnaround. That person, dude, that person is losing their mind all the time, right? You're trying to coordinate energy isolation like that. So hats off to what you do, Jocko.
Appreciate it.
I don't know if this happens, Jocko, at your facility, but on this facility where we had all the cranes, they actually had a lockout tagout board, like a huge board where everybody was placing their locks in. And I'm with James. I know where my capacity is. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. And I think I would be overwhelmed in your situation, trying to keep track of all that stuff. And I guess I'm curious, you must be part of a team, right? On the site. You're not like just one guy hanging around. What does the team look like in a refinery, or a turnaround situation? You have specific specialties, or you have areas, or how does that work?
Well, as you know, every company, or as I call every client, because here I'm representing SHO, has their own unique way of running it. But typically, in my experience, there's always a group that does the maintenance, the regular daily tasks, preventive maintenance, supporting the contract partners and the operators. And then there's a group that does turnarounds or projects. And most of the time, ideally you would want somebody that's familiar with the process, that has, in the perfect world, isolated the unit before, or specific parts of that unit.
Yep.
And my latest experience, there's a operations in combination with maintenance go out, and mainly operations drives the lockout and isolation of that part of the unit. Isolate operations, sorry, isolates the unit. Maintenance comes and verifies it, and then we do a control permitted area where you have permit coordinator that is already the lockout is secured, and then it issues out permits per group permits for cold work and hot work on that control permitted area. It is a team of sometimes 4 or 5 people, permit coordinator, control area with barricades, hard barricades, signage, gates, and a full range of communication and chain of communication in case of any incidents occur there, in case any improvements or findings occurred during that shutdown for that area specifically. But it's not definitely not a one-man show. It's a whole well put together team.
Thank goodness.
Absolutely.
Thank goodness.
So you've worked on both sides. You've worked as the service contractor coming in, performing maintenance, working in turnarounds, and you now sounds like you work for the hiring client, the operator, as we would call it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Safety consultant, right?
Yes.
So let me ask you this. Let's start with being a contractor safety professional coming into the plant. What are the unique challenges contractors have in working in plants?
So you have to make sure that there's like a happy spot, and you're able to spot it between what the client wants and what your company demands to execute a job. And let me put you a scenario. We're gonna have in our atmosphere, you're gonna have to go into fresh air, right? And then the client comes, brings their industrial hygiene. You know what? For this scenario, we have made a small pass by, ambient air is fine. You're okay. I took readings. The industrial hygienist from the client tells you it's all good, but your company, maybe policy, demands fresh air no matter what, unless there's a 100% perfectly seated valve that is not letting nothing pass through, right? And there's nothing being picked up, zero readings on that meter. So that's one of the things that as a safety professional, that's your challenge. Make sure that your team, just because the client says, hey, it's okay, you have to make sure you comply with your own team, because then that could come with own set of, I hate to say it, but consequences. Let's just be real on the contractor end. Also, keeping that synergy. Have the transparency with the client to bring up concerns and events, at the same time being diligent enough to make sure that you create that energy, that relationship with the client, that, hey, let me manage this first, let me see what's going on, and then I'll get back with you with the details. The transparency will always be there, but allow me the chance to see what's going on before jumping. Let's say that somebody said that they saw XYZ. Hey, I saw this for sure, this happened. And then you go and investigate. Hey, you know what? That's not what really happened. What really happened was, and that comes with forming the relationship. Your unit's client safety with your contract rep safety, and building that relationship and that trust.
You know, I'm glad you said that, because that's something I've been preaching for years, and it's something we fight all the time in the midstream and upstream oil and gas industry. But my operator hiring client person didn't tell me I had to do this, right? You're responsible for your employees, no one else. You're responsible for your employees. So you got to know what your policies are and be able to bridge between the people you're working for and what you're doing internally, right? And, you know, Dr. Martin will tell you, if I've said this once, it's a million times. I stole it from Fred Manuel, but I think it's the truth. Hazards are best controlled in the planning of the work. So having a bridging document, having those pre-startup meetings, we know before we come in here, we're going to sit down with our client, and we need to explain to the client what our policies are and decide whose policies we're going to follow as we go through this process. That way, we're not standing at the unit having an argument. We've already had this discussion before we get out there, right? So exactly. I think that's great observation from the way things work at the contractor level. Now, on the other side. This is your plant.
Mhm.
You may have 3,000 contract workers walk in to do a turnaround or an outage. How do you manage that? What goes through your planning, your mind in the planning stages? Because you've got 3,000 people, some of which have never walked through the gates of that plant before.
I want to start by saying I don't care what nobody says, it never goes smooth. The orientation alone, I don't care what anybody tells you, and you know this from experience, right, James and Linda. So the first thing is ideally getting that orientation. What kind of orientation are they going to receive? How long are they going to be on site? That has to be signed up by management, right? Ideally, all that gets discussed, and before they touch the gate, the facility, that's already been arranged and agreed on. Once you get them across the gate, there's really, what I do is getting, making that morning meeting, the very first one, the very first ones, then seeing us or me, if it's my area, really getting acclimated with what kind of supervision am I gonna be interacting with. Craft folks, let me see how safety minded they are. Let's see when they get out of their lunch area, when they get on the unit, do they have their PPE? Do they have everything set up? How are they setting up? Do they right off the bat form their hooch and everything for their hard work? They're ready to go, or they're kind of like on the go. You have to ask them for something to put it on. You know, what kind of culture are they bringing? We know that turnarounds, shutdowns, there's a time frame. They agree to a time frame, and sometimes in that time frame, you're just gonna do damage control. And I hate to say that, but it's just the truth. You're gonna have to control that. Make sure you're almost like this, behind them, like no, don't do that, don't touch that. Turn
Don't
around,
touch that.
please
Don't turn
stop.
that valve.
Don't
take
hit
that lock
the,
off. No, leave that lock on.
Oh yeah, like hey man, we can't rig with that chain like that. We can't use a chain here. Some facilities they don't allow you to rig with any type of chain. And just the way I tackle it is just being present, not hovering over them, not micromanaging, but make sure that I'm, especially in the issuing of permits, listening. I'm gonna be talking to one of the craft here, or talking to my coordinator, but I'm listening. Oh yeah, well, I'm gonna do this, and then if I can eavesdrop on the conversation, well, do you have your hooch? Oh, well, do we need one? And then maybe I could be a resource there. Oh yeah, you're issuing permits. Let me take the conversation from you. Hey, yeah, here we expect X, Y, Z. Make sure you have this before you come and ask for the operator this permit, because then they're gonna turn you around. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that. Well, do you know what? Let's go walk and come with me. Let's go. Show me where you're gonna be at. And that way you're like a resource. You help them that way, expedite kind of those things. And
So,
that's the best advice I can give.
so what are some of the key things that you wish you had a tool? And by tool, I mean, like, you know, everybody has software and management systems and whatever. What are some of the key tools that would take some of that burden off of you as somebody that's the contractor's representative for safety? I mean, we already
Ooh.
do safety pre-qualification where people may or may not tell the truth on their forms, but what could be better managed through AI or through software or through hands-on audits, outside audits? I mean, is there anything that comes to mind that would be helpful in the coordination and the implementation phases?
Well, one of the things, and is it all struggles like the accuracy of certain qualifications of trainings that somebody says they can do it, right? So if somebody's training working at heights, sometimes you know how it is. They need to turn around, they need a person come on with it. Oh yeah, I took it. When? 5 years
Yep.
ago. Oh, that's nice. But
Yeah,
this is no use here. Like
yeah,
we're in
that's right.
2024. It was 2002. I don't know, whatever the case
Yeah.
might be. But I think in regards to qualifications trainings, I think something that'll be more fast paced to be able to verify it, or something that says something says before they can go out here, you need to take that, and then the contractor ideally taking care of that one. But that's a little bit of a hard one
Right,
to take care of.
You know, I think
right.
we all struggle with that. There are multiple hundreds of training providers out there. There's a lot of e-learning training, and some of it's fantastic. But it was just this past month, I audited assessed rather a contractor, to use the right terminology, that works on anhydrous ammonia lines. The authorized worker had training that was 2 minutes and 56 seconds long in lockout.
Oh my
time.
gosh. Oh my gosh.
That's scary.
Can you imagine that team in your plant? We're going to lock down double block and bleed this line with 2 minutes and 56 seconds worth of training.
I don't even know they would know what double block and bleed means.
Probably
that
wouldn't.
one.
Right?
Probably wouldn't. Probably wouldn't.
So
go ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead, James.
So, looking at the management of contractors, that's always been difficult. You want to build a relationship with contractors so you have the same contractors inside the plant that you had at the last one. So lessons learned get carried forth. And when you bring in a new contractor, they don't have that experience. They don't have the lessons learned from past incidents. Their workers are brand new. How important is it in the qualifying of those contractors to look beyond just price, to say, hey, do you really do the things you say you do? Like, everybody says they do safety meetings. Everybody says they do training. Everybody says they do investigations and have a committed methodology for root cause analysis. But a lot of people don't. They say they do, but they don't. How important is to catch that before they get into the plant?
It's essential. And you being in depending on the situation, but being in a shutdown turnaround kind of scenario, it is essential because even though everything is going to be super fast paced, you have to at least assure that the process that they say they're going to use for incident investigation to find the root cause, to do follow up or keep people safe. You won't have that play of, oh, well, we have weeks to get it down, we have months. So in the pre-screening and the being awarded the project and the job as part of submitting the whole package, it's essential that those are not only confirmed and shown, but ideally most of the people that we bring into onto some facilities, they are already working with other facilities that are of our same team, and they have proven methods already. Now, somebody brand new to the facility for the first time in the organization, it's not rare, but it's not very common.
That's good. That's good to know. So let me shift focus a little bit. Dr. Martin says you're a motivational speaker, and I can see why. I'm motivated already. I'm ready to go do a turnaround, man. I was just going to go there with him.
I was just going to go there with him because we're talking kind of like all this heavy, deep, and real, James. Jocko runs Startup Motivation, or at least that's what his company, I think, is called. And he does motivational speakers and toolbox talks and stuff for other companies. I was going to go further, James, and put him on the spot and ask him if he's got a motivational moment for us that he can show his skills.
Oh, Dave, I'm ready. I stay ready.
I'm ready. I'll stay ready. I like that.
Bring it. Jocko hit it with a motivational speech.
One of the most important things that we often do is whenever we get in a conflict situation, which is very common in safety, it's sad to say, is that we take a lot of things personal. Oh, this craft individual, this operator, this project manager, this construction manager doesn't like me, didn't like what I said, doesn't want to follow what I'm saying, what I'm thinking. We often put, and it's just as real as it gets, feelings in the forefront of a situation. And everything we've been preaching, the certifications we've gotten, is all resting on the basis of keeping somebody safe, which doesn't include us. It never did, and it never should. Whenever there's a conflict situation or somebody has an issue with us intervening, we have to keep in mind that it's not because of us. It's not against us. It's maybe in their head, their perceived action that we're taking of slowing them down, of stopping them, of what's the issue now. One of the things that we underestimate, and I really recommend everybody to do, is that take yourself out of that. Sometimes people have to let it out. It's hot. Maybe it's August in Texas. Maybe you're talking to somebody doing installation. They have a whole suit. They have a respirator. And now here comes the safety trying to get them their attention because maybe they haven't tied off. And there's an opening on the deck on that scaffold. You're trying to save their life. But the first thing that comes up here is it's hot. I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to be here maybe. And now you're gonna try to ding me on something. Sometimes I say let them get it out. The reaction is always gonna come. I'm not saying tolerate disrespect. What I am saying is that most of the time you will even see it. They'll change their demeanor. They'll let it out. Hey, I understand. I'm not trying to bug you, but you need to tie off because there's an opening that I want you to fall. You'll see it in their face. They'll probably just get their sweat, dry their sweat off, clean themselves up. I didn't see that. All right, I'll do it. I didn't mean to do that. And at times I see, and in my case, I used to be very reactive, like, hey, relax, don't talk to me like that. Look, this XYZ. And I can admit that I was wrong. It was the moment when I started taking my feelings out of the equation that I was able to do conflict management better. I was able to maybe even form a good relationship with who I thought was a difficult person. And at the end of the project, of the day, of the assignment, people understood that I was there for only one thing, and that is to keep somebody safe. Don't take it personal. Don't make it about you, because safety was never meant to be about us, but about the people who are doing the work and who we look after.
Woo!
Fired up already.
Jocko, I'm so proud. I'm fired up. Thank you, Jocko. Did you kind of feel that I was going to ask you that? James almost stole my thunder. I was waiting till the end for it.
You got to move
But
fast
just so
around here, Jocko. You're dealing
our-
with Dr. Martin. She moves quickly.
we try to snipe each other. But I want to mention again, Startup Motivation. Your email there at Startup Motivation is at Jaco, Jaco at startupmotivation.com. And he really does, he does these motivational speakings for groups around the country. He's done motivational toolbox talks. And I just like to get that out there because I want to help that small business grow, because Jaco is pretty special.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I as well do interviews of motivational leaders. I did Charlie Mitchell, the first African-American chef in New York City to receive a Michelin star. So I sat down with him and visited him in New York. Nick Wallace, very popular chef from Mississippi, got to attend one of his events as a guest with Chef Budalo, a famous chef from New York, I believe. And I just like sitting down with motivational people like yourselves, leaders in the industry, whatever it is that you do, and then you're creating not only roots but seeds, planting into other
And
people
ripples.
and what?
And ripples. The ripple
Ripples,
effect.
there you go. There you go.
Is that kind of like Roll
So-
Tide?
Nah.
Sure, it's like Roll Tide.
There you go.
Qualify.
We're
Thank you
everywhere,
for
man.
coming on, Jocko. We really appreciate you. You've blessed us with some good stuff today. And so we're gonna take it out here. And before James does, I'm gonna say, if you like what we do, we're on YouTube, on Veriforce's YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify. We drop every Tuesday on both of those. We also post on LinkedIn, so you can listen to us there. But make sure you hit the like button, smash the subscribe button. Tell us how you feel, whether it's good or bad. We like to hear it. And if you have some guests that you think need to come on the show, let us know.
Always
You
on
guys
the cool
appreciate it.
guest. Thank you, Jocko, for what you do to bring workers home safe from these high hazard jobs. That's our
Here he
mission.
comes.
Veriforce.
Here he
That-
comes. He's gonna say it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna say it. Roll Tide, y'all.
Roll.
Until next
Thank you,
time,
Linda.
y'all
Thanks.
keep bringing those workers home safe from high hazard jobs. Out.